On the other hand, Jan, I'm too familiar with colleges to believe that this is going to be the radical change in college admissions and academic standards as many conservatives are portraying, because the court, rather inexplicably, the majority opinion left open a wide loophole for colleges to continue to use race to lower their academic admission standards for Black students by saying that, well, of course, nothing prevents a college from taking account of a student's essay that discusses how his race affects his character and life experiences and whatnot. Well, this is a very, very significant loophole, Jan. It basically simply institutionalizes what's already going on. This is a practice known as, quote, holistic admissions, which is one of the many, many fictional ideas that pervade college admissions infrastructure because of I think, a very unfortunate line of Supreme Court decisions. And we're supposed to believe that colleges are being very individualized and are really assessing each applicant on a highly specific, holistic basis that just somehow always ends up by admitting Black students on a holistic basis with test scores that would be automatically disqualifying if presented by whites and Asians. So I have to say that I am not expecting compliance. I'm expecting colleges to double down on this so-called holistic admissions that allows them to skirt what were already putative barriers to using race in college admissions.
But didn't the Supreme Court down specifically prohibit that kind of activity, basically, essentially discrimination based on race?
Well, it did, except then it said, but of course you can look at a student's admissions essay that talks about race and take that into account. So they can say, oh yes, we're abiding by the spirit of the law, but it just so happens that we have concluded, based on a holistic admissions process, that these Black students have experienced consequences of being Black that make them more qualified for admission than whites and Asian students with much, much higher academic test scores and GPAs. So it all depends on, this. If the schools had good faith and they wanted to abide by the sort of more pervasive rhetoric of the opinion, yes, there's no question. Roberts said, implicitly reversing 4 decades of Supreme Court precedent, that this use of race in college admissions doesn't survive constitutional scrutiny. He said that. Of course, I don't dispute that. All I'm saying, Jan, is that he gave the colleges a very, very big loophole for continuing the practices that they're already engaged in.
I mean, basically, I think you're saying here that you expect them to do this and then you expect further cases to be coming to the court based on this. Is that what I understand?
Yes, and unfortunately, the court did not lay out any benchmarks for how to assess that schools are still giving undue weight or any weight. I mean, there should be no weight given to race. It's simply an irrelevancy. But the court hasn't told us how we're going to be able to tell that. So yes, there's going to be a lot of litigation. It's litigation, again, that is completely avoidable if schools just said, okay, from here on in, we're not going to give people plus points on their admissions because they're Black. The thing that I would also stress, Jan, that I think people should be on their guard against, the dissents in this opinion, above all, Justice Sonia Sotomayor's 80-page dissent, and the circumambient rhetoric on the part of virtually every college in the country, is claiming that this is the end of the world, that it is the end of educational opportunity for Blacks, that the court, they say the majority was motivated by an attempt to end racial progress. None of that is true, because the only thing that this decision, if it were abided by in the spirit in which it has been laid down, the only thing it does is rearrange the existing population of Black college students. It doesn't mean that any Black students cannot go to college who otherwise want to go to college. It merely says they would go to college on the same conditions as their non-racially preferred peers, which is to colleges for which they're academically qualified. To be sure, there will be fewer students at the very upper reaches of selective colleges, but to say that that equals the end of educational opportunity is unbelievably elitist and snobbish. It basically says that the only way that you can get a decent college education is if you go to Harvard. Well, there's thousands of colleges and universities in this country, and they should be standing up for themselves saying, excuse me, Justice Sotomayor and the 75 college presidents who wrote a letter saying the sky is falling if we get rid of racial preferences. We provide a perfectly decent, legitimate education that is as capable of creating future leaders as the high marquee name recognition schools. I mean, it is the rankest elitism, and that elitism goes as well to the business community in this country that's also been pushing the court, don't you dare end racial preferences because we need a diverse workforce. Well, again, I just can't stress this enough. You have the same population of Black college going students as before. They're simply rearranged to schools for which they are qualified. So if these Black corporations, if American Airlines and Accenture and Salesforce and Walgreens is insistent on hiring by race, here's all they have to do. Hold their noses apparently and go to a school that many people maybe have never heard of before, but where Black students are attending. That is not the end of the world.
And just a quick reminder, we still have our Independence Day sale going. That's the Epoch times the entire digital ecosystem for 25 cents a week for the entire year. Just go to the link below.